It is Thursday, January 26, 2012. I'm Alex Jones, and this is Infowars Nightly News. We are teleprompter free. We're all about actual research and producing our analysis of the news right here ourselves and not getting it handed down from the CIA or the Pentagon or some foreign group that is basically trying to lobby this country's destruction. We are truly independent. Thank you so much for joining us and being part of the Infowars.com family. Coming up after the lengthy news segment we've got for you tonight with incredibly important information, Colin Gunn, the maker of Indoctrination, dealing with the documents and admissions that the public schools are basically brainwashing camps to turn people into biological androids. He'll be joining us in studio coming up after the first break. And we also have a report we put together today that basically stems out of a phone call I got a couple days ago and research that we did from it, connecting in with previous research that we'd done, confirming FEMA camps in the United States, but not just FEMA camps, the relocation, rendition, or kidnapping hubs at major airports and seaports around the United States. And of course, we have the reports of the Red Sox planes being used for rendition. In fact, I forgot to print those. Just later when I get to that, guys, I meant to tell you, can you have CIA aircraft that was used to ship the cocaine was for rendition, kidnapped flights, and the Red Sox plane used for kidnapped flights. There was a new article about it like a week ago. The point is I want to be able to show folks that. But the beauty of this radio/TV show that I do during the day and then the nightly news every evening is that it's about our discovery with you. It's about all of us discovering this information together. And my show is about showing you that you can see what we're seeing. You can see even more than we're seeing. This is all part of an investigation together. And there it is. They found it in just a few seconds. How U.S. firms profited from torture flights. Court documents illustrate how U.S. contracted out secret rendition transportation to a network of private companies. And it goes on to report the Red Sox plane and other jets. And they tell me they found the other article, too. Let's pull up that Reuters article. That's French news agency there. Mexico drug plane used for U.S. rendition flights report. So my point is this report coming up deals with LAX and a rendition center, not just from the source that called it on the radio, but other sources we have, confirming that they've taken an old parking lot and turned it into a rendition center for political dissidents during economic collapse and those that don't go along with tyranny. Just incredible that America has turned into this nightmare tyranny. We're going to cover Pier 57, where protesters were held at the RNC in 2004. Austin Robert Mueller in 99, the old airport built a FEMA camp for political dissidents. We're going to show you that. Sand Point, which is a FEMA center, and they admit it's FEMA running it, that was used for protesters. And then the new one, LAX. This is proving FEMA camps. This is incredible information. It ties into NDAA, all of it. It's coming up. But right now, let's get into the bulk of the other news this evening. Obama signed with little fanfare yesterday a global internet treaty worse than SOPA. We told you about this treaty a few years ago. They kept it secret, but it got leaked. Shutting down content, delisting websites, no due process for copyright, you name it. The London Guardian's reporting today that Google is already shutting down websites that the British government asked in the U.S. The British government has a delist where if something exposes corruption, they can order it taken down. It censors. They just call it delist. Well, now they're delisting here in the United States and worldwide. Incredible information on that front. The criminals that run our political system know we're waking up, and they're desperate to start shutting down the web. We've already been delisted from Google News. Not web, but news. Folks, spread the word about Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.com, the audio streams, the YouTubes, everything, while we've still got it. They're shutting everybody down incrementally because we're having an effect. Please tell your email list, your Facebook, your Twitter about Infowars.com and about the free films that are online, the nightly news, the websites. I mean, it's so vital. That's why they're moving against us, because we're having an effect. Continuing here, Obama administration purposely misled public about Gulf oil spill estimates. We knew this at the time. But some estimates is that it's 20 times, 15 times, 10 times. No one's sure. It's just way over what they said. And they use Corexit, which is hundreds of times worse than crude oil, to break up the oil and drive it to the bottom, which basically caused mass death to the food chain and the entire bottom of the ocean. This is just an unprecedented environmental disaster. And this is now coming out, being reported by members of Congress that there was a giant cover-up. The U.S. Geological Survey and others are exposing that. These are confirmed congenital liars. I mean, what do you expect from these criminals? Continuing, taxpayers still owe $132.9 billion from bailout to private offshore banks. That's just the first round of bailouts, not counting the tens of trillions that have been given to foreign banks. And then we owe interest on the money we give the foreign banks. I saw another report about how members of Congress aren't paying taxes, and a bunch of the Obama people owe all these back taxes, and Mitt Romney pays almost no taxes. And then they recycle the scam and say, well, raise taxes on rich people when they're exempt. They mean on the middle class, to basically shut down their competition. It is just unspeakable how manipulative these criminals are. In fact, here's that article out of Investors Business Daily. 36 Obama aides owe $833,000 in back taxes. And they use all this money to build drones, to hire more police, to not go after criminals, but to harass political activists here in the United States. We are paying for our own destruction, and this government is completely illegitimate. Now, in a build-up to the report we've got on FEMA camps confirmed, the actual rendition hubs confirmed, not only in L.A., but in dozens and dozens of sites all over the U.S., this program of military drills in the streets, helicopters flying over, simulated explosions that we've seen going on for decades. In the past, when you talked about this, they would say you were a kook. I mean, I could video this in Austin or San Antonio, and the news would say we're not going to cover it. And I'd have black helicopters firebombing buildings they'd covertly leased. Now when they do it, they admit, yes, the military is training to basically take on the American people, and it's a wonderful thing. So here's the article by Steve Watson. Military helicopters conduct covert exercises over U.S. bank buildings. This is all part of other drills going on to acclimate the public to being attacked by our own military that are happening here in the United States. Here it is.
LAPD and elite military units conducted extraordinary counterterrorism training in the skies above downtown LA tonight.
At one point, they made what appeared to be a drop-off at a park. Within seconds of landing, the helicopter was back in the air.
It was a strange sight in the skies over Los Angeles. Military Special Forces flying a practice mission last night, and there are more exercises scheduled for today.
And again, they have giant bases. They have military bases that have large buildings. They could do this on base. This is done to acclimate you for the end of posse comitatus, troops on the streets, and using the military against citizens. Oh, and of course, I've been talking about this for 16 years plus on air. Now it's all admitted, not just from leaked documents we got that the corporate prostitute media ignored. Now the NDAA, the John Warner Defense Authorization Act, Northcom, Brigade Homeland, it's all admitted. The military training to take over your cities, to take over Capitol buildings and states that don't go along with these criminal orders. Now, speaking of that, we have this special report put together quickly just in the last 24 hours by Rob Dew. Because when I got this phone call a few days ago by a guy that owns a limousine company in L.A., he talked about how this old parking area he would go to had been turned into a new facility, and they'd put up barbed wire fences facing both ways, had gates where buses can go in. And when he mistakenly went there a few times looking for, the place to park, when he was waiting, the police basically came after him. And he had seen my other documentaries and noticed that he'd seen similar facilities around the country. So we're first going to go in this report to Pier 57 from 2004 in New York, where they put thousands of peaceful political protesters in a stockade and actually ran buses inside, making them sick and laughing at them, and had porta potties. And I'd seen this before, 5 years before, in Austin, and it's still there, but now it's at Bergstrom, not just the old airport, Robert Mueller, where they have giant hangars with bolts and chains in the floors, porta potties, cots, barbed wire, which they admit are for civil unrest periods, to bring the political dissidents, interrogate them, and then decide who gets sent out to the government aircraft for rendition that we just showed you earlier. That's a black bag over the head, and you go to a center overseas to be killed, to be tortured, whatever the case is. And remember, we've got clips of U.S. senators saying, we want Americans to be scared. Lieberman, you're an American, you say, I want a lawyer, shut up, you don't get one. This is all about the criminals that have hijacked the government, sold the derivatives, bankrupted the nation, federalized everything. This is about their takeover of society. And I cannot stress to you how hardcore this info is, just confirming that they have these hubs to then relocate people. And that's all in the Emergency Centers Establishment Act. It's in Rex 84. They admit it's the old military bases is where you'll be taken. Also, we have more prisons than any other country in the world, larger prison population. They've got old derelict prisons shut down and waiting in the Military Commissions Act, in the Civilian Inmate Labor Camp program, in all of these. And you can search engine every term I'm giving you and have government documents admitting it. When the media says, oh, we investigated camps and can't find them, that's bull. That's them putting fake garbage, we've learned, on the web that are straw men to lead you to things that aren't real. We're giving you the facts. And you've heard the NDAA saying they'll arrest you and kill you or torture you and disappear you. So stop living in denial. So we're going to first go to Pier 57, then back to 99 with Robert Mueller. 57's from 2004. Sandpoint is from 99 in Seattle. And notice it's run by FEMA. Oh, the old military base is shut down. FEMA runs it now, and they put the protesters in there. It's always FEMA. That's in the regulations as well. And then we've got LAX from January 2012. Here is this incredible report. FEMA camps confirmed. These are rendition kidnapping hubs. It doesn't get more important than this. Imagine if people would have known about Hitler early on and actually fought him. He could have been defeated. Or Lenin or Stalin or Mao. This is America. We're not perfect, but you know what? We're not poor serfs in Russia or Germany. We're going to fight back. And we're going to fight back with the info war while the sun's still shining. The sun's setting on our republic. Tyranny's coming in. And people are starting to listen. You want hardcore data? Here it is. We're in New York City, right here on the Hudson River. And this condemned former bus station where they stored the buses is being used to hold over 2,000 protesters. And they admit that they randomly set up fences and scoop up whole crowds of people and then take them here. And for over 3 days, they've not let people talk to lawyers, call out, talk to their families. Some have been released. Some have gone to the hospital with rashes over their entire bodies. This building is condemned. The city admits it. The bus union wouldn't allow them to use it years ago, so they turned it into an emergency police facility. It's full of asbestos, chemicals, oils from decades and decades and decades in this 70-year-old building, and the average stay for someone scooped up in there is over 24 hours. The city even admits that.
Many of the nearly 2,000 protesters arrested over the past few days have been taken to an old bus depot on Manhattan's West Side. But now the use of Pier 57 as a temporary holding facility is stirring up some controversy of its own. Protests are being held there to spotlight conditions. Some of those being detained say they're getting sick. There are reports of cramped conditions, rashes, chemical burns, and difficulty breathing.
We should call this facility what it is, and it's a concentration camp. It's the Pier 57 concentration camp.
The mayor has the nerve, and the police commissioner has the nerve to allow this to happen, to actually stick people in an oil-filled garage with asbestos.
Across the nation, at airports and old military bases, they're installing hangars and structures to intern the American people under military control. They're also integrating local police. You've already seen some of the evidence. But even the town where I live, Austin, Texas, is not immune from these activities. We're told that there's a holding facility here on the old Robert Mueller Municipal Airport, a hangar to hold people. Have you been inside there?
No, not since they fixed it up. I haven't. I was in the foot fixing it up.
How did they fix it up?
Well, you probably don't recognize it, but it's an abandoned hangar at the old airport just off 51st Street. Today and tomorrow, sheriff's employees are turning this place into a booking center and even a holding cell. Now, it really doesn't look like much, and okay, it's really not, but it is a perfect place to set up shop. Anyone arrested in the Travis County area during the New Year's Eve party for a Class C misdemeanor will be brought out here. Sheriff's officials tell me it's pretty primitive. Inmates will be fingerprinted and allowed 2 free phone calls. Then they'll be held here for about 4 hours, just enough time to sober up. Then they'll be released and expected to appear in court in the future. Only people who have ID on them will be brought out here, since they won't have the capability to run fingerprint checks, and they're mostly expecting people arrested for public intoxication down in the A2K and 6th Street areas. This temporary booking facility opens up for business tomorrow night. That's Thursday at 8 o'clock.
We're hoping to get staff acclimated to working in this environment starting tomorrow, with hopefully a low volume of arrests. So hopefully by come Friday night, everyone will know how the flow is going to work in here and be used to it.
The holding cell is surrounded by this chain link fence, and the fire marshal has told the sheriff's department that they can hold about 380 people in here, and the sheriff's deputies are ready for a busy night.
Anyone who got in their way was arrested and shipped to a FEMA center, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. In direct violation of Posse Comitatus, had Delta Force on the ground from day one of the demonstrations and protest, continually integrating the local, state, county, and city police under federal command. This should be a giant red flag for any American concerned about their God-given rights and their freedom in this country.
At least 250, perhaps more, and those that have been taken into custody from the streets of downtown Seattle protesting for a variety of reasons. The World Trade Ministers here on their visit. You see them here with their hands pretty much cuffed behind their backs with those plastic sort of strap handcuffed apparatus. They are being led into the Sandpoint Brig. Remember, we told you about this story, dancing all the way in some cases. We told you about this story a couple of weeks ago. A number of the neighbors in that area of Sandpoint Naval Air Station were shocked to hear that the old brig was being reopened just in case it was needed, and it has been. As we said, at least 250 arrests now, maybe more.
And we've seen 400 people arrested. The facility at Sandpoint, we're told, is full. We're told they did not create another one at Boeing Field. But they continue to arrest people, and they continue to crack down hard on the protesters this afternoon.
The worst thing is I finally saw something with my own eyes. It's one thing to talk about it, hear people talk about it on the radio, etc. I saw this with my own eyes at LAX, the Los Angeles airport. They've built a giant human holding pen. It's obvious. It's quite obvious what it's for. It's for processing people. This thing, they used to park all of our limousines and cars and buses at the eastern end of the north set of runways. There's 2 sets of runways at LAX. They used to park all of us at the eastern end of the north runway where the planes would land right over the top of us. They moved us all out of there this past summer, which I thought was strange. What I saw was when I pulled in there, and I was followed twice by the cops when I pulled in and I took pictures. This thing it's a holding pen. It could hold thousands of people. It's right next to the tarmac. There's no buildings, no nothing. It's like a 10 or 12-foot fence with a permanent concrete base around the base of it. And there's 2 sets of barbed wire on top facing in and out. So, there's fences like that all over around the airport area.
They actually have one of those at Bergstrom and at the old airport. And I first reported it was a secret holding pen. But the news said I was a conspiracy theorist, but that it was to hold people during civil unrest. So I'm bad for being right and breaking the news. I don't get an award. I'm bad because I'm right, and it's kooky not to like it.
What's going on at the old airport?
This is where the party could end up, Walt, if A2K and Y2K partiers do get out of hand.
These turnstiles, let me describe them, because you could say, well, it's part of an airport. No. These are those big tubular steel turnstiles. They go in, they don't come back out. There's no way to get back out. There's 4 sets of them, so there's like 16 turnstiles that go into this thing. And it's like the size of 3 football fields. You could get thousands of people. The thing about it that proves what it is because there's on the fence that goes onto the tarmac. You go straight onto the airport tarmac, where, what kind of security is that? They put a big black gate in that you can pull trucks, buses, whatever, into this holding pen. So it's built to move lots of people quickly into this pen and then move them onto the tarmac. Now, what is that for? Except to move people and put them onto aircraft?
No, that's like the Oklahoma City Federal Processing Center. This is actually all in the Emergency Centers Establishment Act, and it's just these creepy crooks and all the stuff with our money they've built against us because they know they're a bunch of crooks. What you just saw is a tiny snapshot of the evidence. My film, Police State 4, The Rise of FEMA, is 16 years of condensed research on the blueprint for the globalist takeover. You notice we reverse engineered this years ago, and we've been unbelievably accurate now that they've publicly announced all this. We're now in post-denial phase. They know they've got a 9% approval rating. They know you're awake to them. Now they're just going with pure intimidation. They think you're fearful. I know you're like me. You're strong, you're deliberative, you're focused, you're committed. The facts are now out. You're going to stand against this. I get a lot of emails saying, why do you cover all this? It's scary. You're going to scare people. I don't think you're cowards. I think when you're faced with the truth, like Patrick Henry said, you'll want the truth and make preparation for it. Just denying the stuff doesn't make it go away. It's like folks I've known who smoke 3 packs of cigarettes. They go, oh, I know you can get cancer, but I never will, and they get cancer. I mean, wouldn't you rather me say, hey, quit smoking cigarettes? And you're like, well, I've been smoking them. I'm going to live in denial. No, quit now, and statistically you won't get lung cancer as quickly. Well, it's the same thing. We got a real case of sickening, disgusting, degenerate tyranny. And we need to be honest about it. I know there's a lot of mainstream dinosaur media watching. Look, stop acting stupid. You don't have to be spoon-fed everything. Look up congressional hearings. There's film of it. Rex 84. Look up Emergency Centers Establishment Act. Look up Civilian Inmate Labor Camp Program. Look up Continuity of Government Civil Unrest Program. Look up decommissioned bases used for civil emergencies. Stop living in la-la land. Okay, it's all real, and they've spent our tax money by the hundreds of billions on these camps. And they've spent probably over $1 trillion in the aggregate since the 40s on underground bases. Switzerland has spent per capita less than 1/100th on underground bases. They have a 2-year food supply, generators, fuel, water, guns, hand grenade launchers for their entire population for less than 1/100th. Why haven't we been let in on the COG in these bases in case of biological release, asteroids, nuclear war? Because we're seen as the enemy. America's been conquered by offshore banks. Do you understand that? We're run, our government has been hijacked by our enemies. There's no bunker for you and your family like Switzerland. They've spent 100 times the money per capita, and it's all built so they can do whatever they want to us. And the whole thing is manned by military and others and corporate people. That's why they're getting rid of the military, bringing in corporates and bringing in drones and bringing in robots. And please don't send me an idiotic email about we're not run by drones and robots. They've already got half the stuff in the air is robot. And they've kept quiet the ground force because that does freak out people. They want to think of men fighting like John Wayne. Within 10 years, no more John Wayne. Okay? I mean, listen, there's not a lot of time to screw around, folks. Okay, how much of what I've said has come true so far? If we don't have an awakening now and put the brakes on this, I want America to be great and prosperous. But there's three or four things can happen. Total World War III, globalists win, launch bioattacks on us, lockdown society, end of humanity as we know it. The global tyranny overreaches, has some wars, fails and collapses. That's much better. Depression, starving in the streets better than them going ahead with the full plan. Or we could wake up, put the brakes on, have some sanity, and pull back from this. But living in denial and hyperventilating over football all day while science fiction crazy land is going on around you, run by psycho mad scientists, there's not time to screw around anymore. There's not time to live in denial. Okay? You have been warned. Now, let me continue here with the news. Speaking of oppression, here's a Daily Mail article. U.S. falls to 47th in press freedom rankings after Occupy crackdown because the big organizations that break all this down, Reporters Without Borders and others who know what tyranny is, are confirming that the United States arrested and assaulted and falsely charged hundreds and hundreds of peaceful protesters across the United States that occupy Wall Street, not to mention our reporter Rob Dew a few years ago in Pittsburgh, totally peacefully videotaping police beating up college students for no reason in their own campus at night, saying no one's allowed out in the city at night. They're out there eating hamburgers at the park bench and beating girls over the head. He's videotaping it. They arrested him. So, yes, this is another hallmark of tyranny. We've got a couple quotes on this. Never have journalists, through their reporting, vexed the enemies of freedom so much. Never have acts of censorship and physical attacks on journalists seemed so numerous. Oh, yeah, I mean, I've been arrested and had my shoulder partway wrenched out of socket. I'm in pain every day for what they did to me 14 years ago for asking Governor Bush a question at the end of his stupid conference. And he pointed to the cops, said, get him. And they roughed me up just for asking him a question. Do you think any of your property, any of your children, any of you, anything's safe when we don't all have liberties? This is precious stuff. And those of you that laugh at people that are for freedom, you're about to find out how precious freedom is because you don't know what you got till it's gone, the cliche says. The equation is simple. The absence or suppression of civil liberties leads necessarily to the suspension of media freedom. Dictatorships fear and ban information, especially when it may undermine them, it said. And that's the Daily Mail right there. This is not a game. It's not a drill. It's not a joke. A bunch of crooks took our government over, robbed the Treasury. They know we're waking up, and they're telling the police and military, prepare for war against those of us that know criminals took over. It's very elementary. Here's another one. DNA samples to be taken from students before SAT college exams. This is all part of No Child Left Behind. This is what federalized education is about. We'll cover after the break. Currently, students are being required to show normal photo IDs before being admitted to SAT or ACT test rooms. But IDs can relatively be forged easily, say many, which means that an imposter could easily slip in and take the test for someone else. On the other hand, requiring students to submit to forensic image analysis, digital photo for the data bank folks to buy and sell, in order to digitally encode their identity may be going way overboard, as it represents a huge step towards authoritarian encroachment in the lives of individuals. That's guest writer Jonathan Benson. Maybe going way overboard. It's federal education screwed everything up on purpose. Continuing here, Natural News reports, Oklahoma lawmaker wants to stop Pepsi from using aborted fetuses cells in soda flavoring research. This is out of Natural News. It is confirmed Pepsi has a division that is involved in using fetal parts, but what I can confirm is that it's in most of the vaccines. That's 100% confirmed. There is a potential that there are companies that are using aborted human babies in their research and development of basically enhancing flavor for artificial flavors, said the representative. He's quoted as saying by KRMG News Talk Radio. What I'm saying is that it does happen, then we are not going to allow it to be manufactured here. I know that there are fetal tissues in a lot of the medical treatments, in the vaccines, and they are in a lot of the cosmetics. That's confirmed. We know Pepsi's involved with companies that do use the fetal parts, and we do know that it's been tested in flavor enhancement. Nothing more delicious than eating your own dead. according to the globalist, teaching us to basically be cannibals. But regardless, this is happening. As they say, Soylent Green is made out of people, as Marcos points out. Okay, continuing. Polish websites to go dark to protest ACTA, the anti-counterfeiting trade agreement that is being rammed through in Poland. And again, Obama has already signed an international treaty basically saying they're going to attempt this. But announcing you have the power to carry out tyrannical actions is one thing. Implementing it is another, and we're going to be fighting them at every stage of that. Continuing, Australian Prime Minister dragged to safety through a crowd of Aboriginal protesters after being ambushed in a restaurant. And it just shows how none of these globalists and none of these people are immune to the public's outrage. And I don't know how they think a bunch of drones and how they think a bunch of checkpoints is going to protect them from what they've been doing. Anybody can be gotten at. I can, anybody can. That's why the globalist controllers always try to put out Obama or Merkel or Barroso or people like that as the supposed bosses. These leaders run nothing. It's the bankers at the highest levels, the globalists, the people at Davos. They're the criminals setting up this nightmare system. So everybody should be fully conscious of that. Now, to give you an Eric Blair, pen name George Orwell quote as we go to break, if you want to keep a secret, you must also hide it from yourself, George Orwell. And that's in a scene in the book when Winston knows that even when he's asleep, the television set that has a two-way camera, as new TVs all do, is actually watching and tracking him. So he says, if you want to keep a secret, you must also hide it from yourself. No, the answer is the globalists are all in, bum rushing us with tyranny. We've got to all in, go head up against them, and stop having fear and realize the only hope we've got is to resist these tyrants. Okay, we're going to go to break here in a moment. I've got a big video report coming out tomorrow that Aaron Dykes and I shot today, and he's busy putting all the documentation together. But it just illustrates what confirmed, absolute, complete liars the TSA are. And we can get a document cam shot on this as we go to break and come back with our filmmaker guest in studio who's waiting. This is out of the Tennessean. Nashville airport video doesn't show irate Senator Rand Paul. You can go to this site and watch the video. He was totally calm. He was held for an hour and 40 plus minutes, as he said, close to 2 hours. But when the police came, they put out a press release that A, he wasn't detained lying, part of this deception system, and B, that he was irate to make it look like he deserved it, part of this total culture of lies. But what other lies have there been? Well, the TSA told us they weren't groping old ladies in the last few months and taking them in closed-door areas and stripping them. Now, they admit they were. But the old ladies have come out and said, well, that's actually a lie, too, what they're saying. They're whitewashing it. They said they weren't storing the images of our naked bodies. That turned out to be a lie. And we're going to do a big report showing all this. They said they weren't groping small children under 12. Then when they got caught doing it on video, taking diapers off babies, sticking their hands down little girls' pants, men doing it, bad enough to have same sex doing it. They lied about that and got caught and said, well, we're going to stop, but then didn't stop. Then they got lied about the statistics of the radiation and quoted Johns Hopkins and others who actually said it was killing people. They said, oh, Johns Hopkins says it's safe. They got caught lying about their crime statistics of how many of them get busted for pedophilia, child porn, raping women in the airport parking garages in uniform, stealing out of people's bags. I mean, who's normal and wants a job ripping colostomy bags off old ladies and making people that are dying of cancer get out of wheelchairs that can't walk and making folks pick them up and stealing money out of bags? I mean, it's just a bunch of degenerate scum who get off on it. I mean, what do you expect? It's their brown shirts who are now on the highways of America, as we told you. So that's just some of the lies, and that's going to be coming up in a special report. We're going to go to break here and come back with our in-studio guest. It's Infowars Nightly News. If you believe in this type of hardcore, fearless, in-the-face-of-tyranny media, become subscribers at prisonplanet.tv. We're running that 15-day free trial right now where 9 years of hardcore resistance to tyranny is archived. All my films, expanded extras, you name it, all at prisonplanet.tv. We'll be right back.
America is in trouble.
Washington is a disgrace.
Government has become too big. It's overtaxing, overspending.
We need to change direction.
We really need change.
We can't afford to make the same mistakes we've made in the past.
Mitt Romney's reputation as a flip-flopper.
He went the other way when he got paid to go the other way.
There is need for economic stimulus.
It's about serial hypocrisy.
This election is about trust. There's been one true, consistent candidate, and that's Dr. Ron Paul.
Ron Paul has been so consistent from the very beginning.
He seems like a more honest candidate.
He tells the truth about what he believes, whether you like it or not.
He's never once voted for a tax increase, never once voted for an unbalanced budget.
Ron Paul's plan is bold, cuts 5 departments. It's what we need.
When he says he's going to cut $1 trillion in the first year, I believe it.
If you don't like how things are going and you're tired of politicians, he's something different.
Ron Paul.
Ron Paul.
Ron Paul.
Ron Paul
is the one we've been looking for.
I'm Ron Paul, and I approve this message.
And it's time to get out of the comfort zone because these people aren't playing games.
We're going to organize. Humanity's going to come together. We are swinging muskets here, toe-to-toe with the globalists. They're bloodied. We're bloodied. It is absolute, total war. If you believe in this information and want to support its viral spread, go to the Infowars store at Infowars.com. We've got the new G.I. Joe Infowars t-shirts. We've got the incredible Pro Pure gravity-fed filters available at Infowars.com in the store. We've got a new DVD, Scientists Under Attack, the Don't Tread on Me flag. We've got all sorts of different bumper stickers to help spread the rebellion virally. It's all there, wristbands, citizen rule books in every order. Order online at Infowars.com today. The water filters, the canteens, it's all there. Infowars.com. Welcome back to this 26th edition of Infowars Nightly News on this Thursday. We've got an amazing in-studio guest, one of the producers and directors of Indoctrination, Public Schools and the Decline of Christianity in America, Colin Gunn. And we also carry and sell the video in the online video bookstore at Infowars.com. But whether you're a Christian or not, and it's from that perspective, no one can deny that education has declined in the United States and our test scores have dropped, and now the president is giving State of the Unions at an 8th grade level, but that's in 2012 numbers. It's really at about a 5th or 6th grade level in 1950s numbers. And that basic values of don't kill, don't steal, don't cheat. I saw another big study just today where in England and the U.S., people think it's okay to steal, to cheat. They don't understand that that makes society break down and fall apart. And it has been our Christian values in the West, not saying the West has been perfect, that has made the West so wealthy and successful. And now that those values are going out the door and there's no standards, we are literally going to hell in a handbasket. And this is just an excellent film, very well done. The interviews are amazing. And I'm just excited that this film is out there because it's a wonderful tool for anybody who has children in a government training camp, a public school, for homeschoolers, for Christians, non-Christians. Indoctrination is something that everybody needs to see. Colin, thank you so much for coming to the studio.
Thanks for having me on your show. It's an honor.
We just came out of break with the trailer for Indoctrination, and we've got a few clips here that you're going to be announcing throughout the interview. But you've got the floor. I mean, tell us about yourself? What made you, decide to make this film, and give folks a synopsis of indoctrination?
Well, my desire was to make a film that directly communicated my concerns about public education in America. I'm Scottish, but I live in America, and I love America, and I see all these problems coming from one place, the public schools. We talk to people about pro-life issues or the Federal Reserve or all the things that you see on your show. You find that it's not met. It's usually met with ignorance. People don't know the truth. And one of the main things I want to say in our film is that the public schools have been incredibly successful. We think of them as a failure, but they're actually a success, because if you look at the history of public schooling, there's been an agenda there for years. Back in the 1800s, they were established with a particular view in mind, and that was to change America. And we're looking at an end game after 200 years of this change in America, and it's all been for the worse. So my desire was to make a film, take my 7 kids, I now have 8, but I took my 7 kids, my wife, in a big yellow school bus, and we traveled across America, going to sites that were pertinent to the history of education in America. So we went to Boston, we went to Dayton, Tennessee, we went to New Harmony, Indiana, where they established a colony, which Robert Owen established a colony which focused on public education. And we interviewed people. The 2 types of people we interviewed were expert witnesses and eyewitnesses. I'm not just a blowhard telling you that the public schools are bad based on my opinion. We interviewed people that really know that the public schools are bad. The expert witnesses, people who have studied them, people like Samuel Blumenfeld, who have studied them for years. And then eyewitnesses, teachers, headmasters, people that work within the system who testify to the fact that the public schools are the worst place for your child to be. And the purpose of our movie is to get people to take their kids out of the public schools.
Well, what you said is just absolutely key, and it's a paradigm shift, because when you read the documents from over 100 years ago, where the big banking association says Americans have the highest literacy rate, they're intelligent, they're informed, we've got to take education from people being educated to being trained, basically dog training. And I've had the former head of policy, Department of Education, Charlotte Iserby, and many others on the show. I've read the documents where they planned to attack the family, to break down society, to get rid of morals so that they can replace them with their globalist morals. And your film gets into this, and I mean, this isn't your opinion. This is the fact. This is a diabolical program against our society, and it's been duplicated all over the world. Anywhere these globalists are in control, the Rockefeller Foundation, the World Council of Churches, taking the churches over. This is in private schools as well. As you know, it's just worse in the government indoctrination centers, the public schools, and they use our tax money, our property taxes, to destroy our youth and turn them into these hollow little consumers, and you go through it all. So, yes, it's done a great job. It's been an incredible success, and the more federalization we get, the more dumbed down our children get, and then the more control there is. I was just reading they're now going to standardize and biometrically scan everybody when they take tests to make sure there's no cheating, and it's a federal database to do that. So break down your findings in the film that, really all tie this together, because this proves that there has been a conspiracy against our children.
Well, people are nostalgic about the schools. They want to go back to the 50s and think it'll be better. But if you go back further than that, you find out there was an agenda early on. So in New Harmony, Indiana, they established this system which was socialist, and the desire was to, and this is, socialists and Marxists do this one important thing. They get the children away from the parents. So they, instead of serving the family, they start to serve the state or the interests of those that the state helps, particularly at that time, the Industrial Revolution. So they saw people as a product. They wanted to detach them from their parents and start to have them serve them. So that was what the Prussian model was based on as well, this militaristic society which wanted to use people for warfare. And now fast forward 200 years to us, when we're living in a world where the public schools really are the indoctrination centers to train people for war. They don't teach them the basic thing. I mean, if you think what the schools are meant to do, that is the one thing they're failing at. But look at all the things that the children are coming out. They're coming out believing in abortion rights and homosexuality and all the things which the parents probably or might not believe in.
Exactly. Even if you're for that or against it, right. Why is the state in there saying we control your kids? I mean, it's like the law now in California where they will inoculate your children if they convince them. Well, that's like saying somebody could have sex with a 12-year-old because the girl was for it. No, under common law and basic law, they're not an adult yet. They can't make that decision. Just because a 12-year-old wants some Jack Daniels whiskey doesn't mean you as an adult can give it to them because they're not of an age to be able to choose that. So this is the state coming in and really proving that it wants to take the children away from the parents. In fact, you just brought this up, and perhaps by the end of the show, because Aaron Dykes is here, you guys can go grab him. He came to me with Charlotte Iserby's book, Deliberate Dumbing Down, the new edition that came out, and it showed Department of Education documents and reports of where in the U.S. they tell the children, okay, close your eyes, pray to God, ask for candy. And they close their eyes, pray to God, and they don't get candy. And they say, okay, now ask the state, ask government for the candy, close your eyes. And they do, and they go, here, you got candy. The state can give it to you. God's not real. The state is God. We have a great guy who's worked here for a long time, just an incredible IT professional who grew up in Venezuela. And his family ran education down there, a private school that got shut down by Chavez. And he said, I don't want to tell this story on air, no one will believe it. But he said the reason they basically shut down our school was because they came to my parents and said, okay, you pray to God and ask for milk, and they have the children, this is in kindergarten, pray. In the morning when they're hungry in a poor country, they open their eyes, there's no milk. And they go, pray to Chavez. They pray to Chavez and they all get milk. And I said, no, I believe you. And then later Aaron goes, wait a minute, this is in this book, but in the U.S. it's candy. Because, but I mean, it's so diabolical that this is going on. What Chavez is doing, he got from us.
Absolutely. It really is an American system, and the school bus is a symbol of this mass system to indoctrinate our culture. And our culture, when we talk to people, and you talk to people on the street, so many of them are status-minded. They're completely committed to the state. They completely love the state, and so you're trying to shake them away from that, and that's because they've been educated by the state. Whoever educates is the one that controls the future of our culture. And it's the saddest thing is the majority of conservatives and the majority of Christians in America still use the public schools, ignorant of the fact that it's undermining their own faith, their own culture, their own politics.
And you're turning your children over to them. I mean, I remember articles in mainstream news like it was normal 15 years ago where they were teaching 6th graders about stuff that I didn't even know about as an adult. I mean, things I won't even say on air. Right. And they were taking them to universities in dorm scenarios. And I mean, it's creepy. It's beyond bizarre that you realize it's a bunch of perverts and weirdos that want our kids, and we just give them to them.
Well, you're statistically more likely to be molested by an employee of a public school than any other profession. That is something that reveals to us that they should not be considered as safe places for your child. You mentioned, you know, some of the stuff that you've heard mentioned to children in the classroom, but also outside the classroom, peer pressure is a significant issue in the lives of children.
Oh yeah, these are modern kids that have been destroyed. You don't want to put your kids in with them.
Yep.
I mean, that's so destructive. I went to public school.
I did.
And my parents were naive. They're not bad folks, but I can't believe that they allowed this to go on, but it was just the normal thing to do. I mean, the sex, the fighting, and people are like, oh, I bet that was fun. No, it wasn't fun. I'm lucky I survived it.
Right.
I mean,
parents are self-deceived. They're partly deceived by the public schools themselves. Public schools don't advertise the molestations, the shootings, the violence, and all the rest of it on their school website.
The police were dealing drugs in my school?
Right. I'm sure you didn't come home and just list all the things that you
No, I didn't. That's another thing. I didn't tell them.
Yeah, children don't. So parents don't know what is going on with their child.
You know why? Because I was embarrassed.
Right. So you never bring it up. So parents I think they're self-deceived in part because they want to believe what they're doing is right for their child. And the truth is, it isn't. Even in the best schools, we have a section in this film about the best schools. You know, I'll give you an example of one of the best schools, Columbine. Columbine's a great school in a great area, and we have testimony from one of the fathers who lost his child in Columbine, and he testifies to the fact that it was his fault. He put his child in care of this system, which he knew was evolutionary mindset about the children, allowed promiscuity, allowed all these terrible things going on. So he took accountability for that fact. Do not trust your children to the state.
That's what's so amazing about your film, and everybody's got to see it. It's Indoctrination, available at Infowars.com. We'll also give out your website. What's the best place for folks to get it if they want to get it directly from you?
Go to indoctrinationmovie.com.
Great, and also send that URL out to everybody. Aaron just came in. Aaron, come on back in here. I know you're not all dudded up for TV, but come on in here. You host the show sometimes. Come on in here real quick. This is unscripted here, teleprompter free. You ran up to me, It's Aaron. Hey, how you doing? And this is Colin here, Colin Gunn. This is, the lady was head of policy, dad Skull and Bones, grandfather Skull and Bones, a big academic, but she was the head of policy, #2 Department of Education. This was under Reagan, of course.
Yes.
And she gets in there, and it's all like, yeah, we're going to create communism, we're going to merge with the Soviet Union. She's got all the documents in there. I mean, she was there, and we're going to destroy the family. She's got all the documents there. But the book used to be the size of the Dallas phone book. Now it's just 500 pages long or so. And I guess I hadn't read the whole thing before. I thought I had, or I'd forgotten the story. Or perhaps it's just in this new, shorter edition, abridged and updated. But in here, Aaron goes, hey, the story that Max, the IT guy, tells about how horrible Chavez is. Right. He's anti-communist because he grew up, around it. He goes on and describes in here how they put the they say, again, pray to God and ask for candy, and then you don't get the candy, and then pray to the government, you get the candy, and it proves the government can give you the candy. I mean, Aaron, how amazing is it to hear Max tell the story, but he wouldn't come on air because he said folks won't believe it, and then here it is in her book with the government documents. I mean,
yeah, this is something Max saw for himself in recent times. This is something they started back in the 60s when they started taking prayer out of schools.
Right.
I forget the exact date, you probably know.
And they call the family the disease in here?
It's that whole state is God mentality, that you pray to a leader of some kind, that only people can help you. And
we advocate homeschooling for the reason that the state is this competing authority, and you can know what your child is doing at all times, what they're believing, and who's with them, what's being taught to them, and that's a great merit of homeschooling. You're with them, and they'll end up like you. I mean, that's what you want for your kids.
Are you kidding? When I was in intermediate school and got off the school bus, from 5th grade to intermediate, there were like kids that had flunked 3-4 times that had mustaches beating me up every day.
Right. You don't. I mean, it's a brutal world out there. And
I remember being on the school bus back home when I was 11 years old, and not knowing what frosting was all around my eyes, like all blurred. I had concussions, being beat up, and then not even telling my parents, just going home and going to bed with concussions. Yeah. And I mean, this is what we do to our kids. And the schools just let them beat the hell out of you. And again, then their answer is more police state because your kids are being beat up. No, don't put them in this cesspit that created a culture that's like this.
When I first came to America, there was a photograph on the front of the Waco newspaper of a young African-American man with his hands behind his back being marched into the school. He hadn't done anything wrong. He was a truant. He'd done the wise thing, which was to escape the school. And here's this poor man. I mean, he was a man. He was 17, and he's getting dragged into the school because they hadn't finished with him effectively. He was being told, you need to sit in this classroom and submit to this authority. And I saw at that point, the schools have become like prisons. They've got barbed wire around them. They've got.
I want to speak to that. I want to speak to that. Again, this is on page 88. This book also available at Infowars.com. The film Indoctrination. Aaron, thanks for coming in, buddy.
Yeah, thanks.
Appreciate you running up with that because, and we've got to get Max on the show. We've got to get him to come in here and talk about this. Okay, continuing, Colin. There's so much more. Tell us who else is in the film and other facets that people have got to see. Because, I mean, you talk about the Columbine dad that's in this. I mean, you really did a lot of work here.
We traveled all across America in this bus. We slept in the bus, and we met all these great people. And the testimony from someone like John Taylor Gatto, and we have a clip of John Taylor Gatto with us. And John Taylor Gatto is important because he's a whistleblower. He's not just an expert, but he was actually there. He was Teacher of the Year in New York City and New York State. This guy knows what he's talking about. And he turned away from the system and condemns the whole system.
Yeah, he discovered it was on purpose.
That's right. So he's one of the people in our film that speak to the history and talk about the agenda behind the public school system, how they desire to to take control of people's lives, and that's why they became like prisons. That's why they became like machines. You know, it's such an artificial environment in the public schools. You know, a bell rings and you close the book and you go to another class and open another book. It's
Pavlovian. It's designed to be psychological warfare, re-education camp.
And it's not the way to learn.
We're not joking when we say it's a indoctrination and it's a re-education camp. They admit in their own documents it's a re-education camp.
That's right.
I mean, it's what it is.
So John Taylor Gatto was despised by all the other teachers. They wanted them to keep quiet. You know, we just want to do our job. You know, don't rock the boat. But he's the ultimate whistleblower.
Let's go to a clip of him, and we'll be right back. Get your comment on it.
At the turn of the century, an educator would appear who would have a lasting impact throughout the 20th century. His name would become synonymous with progressive education. John Dewey.
You can't make socialists out of individualists. Children who know how to think for themselves spoil the harmony of the collective society which is coming, where everyone is interdependent.
In 1896, he established the Experimental University of Chicago's Laboratory School, where the new trend in evolutionary psychology was to be tested on real children. This was where Darwinian science cruelly met education. To these quacks, the child had no soul, no sin, no emotions, no moral character. So over 100 years ago, we can see that the school bus was already loaded with everything from socialists, humanists, Unitarians, utopians, evolutionists, and shrinks.
I wonder how many more centuries we have to see this playing out in front of our eyes before we say something crazy going on here. Is there an idea more radical in the history of the human race than turning your children over to total strangers who you know nothing about and having those strangers work on your child's mind out of your sight for a period of 12 years? Could there be a more radical idea than that? Back in colonial days in America, if you proposed that as an idea, they'd burn you at the stake, you mad person.
Well, that was an amazing clip. And again, that's just a small snapshot of what's in this amazing video. And folks, it's up to you out there to make sure everybody sees this. Tell us about some of the other folks in the film.
We interviewed a man called Samuel Blumenfeld, and it was an absolute honor to go and visit him up in Boston. And Boston's important because that's sort of the center of this compulsory education system through Horace Mann. And so Horace Mann, based on the Prussian model, decided that this was the way we needed to go, this militaristic, organized, compulsory education system.
That was a system where the Hessians were slave soldiers, but didn't even know they were and liked to die.
Right.
I mean, you talk about mind control, Absolutely. And the globalists saw that. I mean, David Rockefeller, his ancestors and others, they said, this is the plan.
I think there was religious motivation at the time as well, and that the Unitarians didn't see things the same way the Christian founding fathers would have seen things. They had a philosophy that didn't put God as the ultimate authority. It was sort of the humanistic approach to education, and that's what we started to see. And so humanism reigned throughout that era.
And the PhDs, they're going to make us better, but actually, the PhDs have to dumb us down because we're not letting them manage us.
That's right.
I mean, how sick is that to knowingly try to screw up young minds and turn them into robots?
Well, back in the 1800s, that was the movement. They started to view the child not as a person with a soul, but as a machine, this animal that could be retrained. Now, when you look now and you see children put on Ritalin or other drugs to pacify them, well, it started back then. They started to see that you just input things into this child. It's just information into this child and you'll get results. And so that was this sort of amoral experiment, as you could call it, an experiment on the child. And
which is a total revolution against the idea of 1776 and human liberty, and what God tries to give us is the free will. The devil wants to create slaves. God asks that you stand up. All the devil asks is you get on your knees.
That's right. The Bible says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Knowledge foundationally makes sense in a context of understanding a created universe, that God is a creator.
Well, they know the more knowledge you get, you're going to discover God. All these top Nobel Prize winners, scientists, geneticists who were atheists, they keep becoming Christians. They keep discovering God because when you actually do research things, you find out this was all built.
That's right. So Samuel Blumenfeld, he wrote a book called Is Public Education Necessary? And he's done that research. He's exposed Horace Mann and talked about the philosophy of the Unitarians and how it affected us. And he's talked at length about the effect of the way they teach English, the way the public schools are run, just as how inhumane they are and how harmful they are to children and parents, the lives of the children and the parents.
No, they're trying to take the children away, and they think your child's a robot. I mean, look at California. I saw a case, 3 years ago, where they said the state is the guardian, we own your children. That got overturned, but they're back with the forced inoculation.
That's right.
I mean, it's outrageous.
That's right, and you know, back to the idea that this is even in the best schools, because it's a hierarchical structure, because it's run from Washington, D.C. and through others, you can't escape it. So just saying, I'm in the country, I have a nice little school, and my teacher's really nice. Well, we've got examples in the film of a young woman called Sarah Laverdier who talks about what goes on in the playground. And even if your teacher's a nice Christian lady who loves the kids, it doesn't mean that the other teachers are like that either, are like that at all. So the undermining of the parental authority starts at that young age.
And the school is only one form of the indoctrination. You've got the television, all that culture, and then even though my children had never watched the brainwashing and the violent television, it's all regurgitated back by other children.
You can't escape it. And, you know, if you were on the playground, I was in the playground in a public school in Scotland back in the 80s, and it was probably better than it is now because we didn't have social media, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have a friend with a cell phone who could show you everything that he wanted to show you. That's what you're seeing in the classrooms now. There's no moral guide within the classroom.
And that's why governments everywhere are saying, let the kids have the smartphones in the schools.
Right. And the parents, they can't be in the classroom. They're not allowed in the classroom. The kids aren't going to tell them all the things that are going on.
You're handing your kids over to a bunch of globalist scumbags. Let's go to this clip with one of the gentlemen you were just talking about.
Samuel Blumenfeld.
We have a significant problem in America. We've embraced socialism, and we are far down the line. Nationalized health care, all the welfare that we have, bailing out banks, and it looks like would you say it's fair to say the public schools are an engine to that process?
Not only that, but the public schools themselves were a form of socialism. A state government education system is a socialist system. People don't realize that socialism was an ideology in this country as early as the 1820s. And it was brought to this country by Robert Owen, who believed that the cause of all of our problems was religion, and that children could be educated in such a way without religion to become anything you wanted. So he came to this country and he created the first secular communist colony in America called New Harmony, Indiana. And he thought that he could reform the universe by getting rid of religion. The best way to do that is to educate children without religion, so that they would create this new communist utopia in which everybody was equal.
Okay, so Samuel Blumenfeld, we interviewed him there in Harvard, and we interviewed him also in Lexington Green, and they're two important places. Obviously, there was an intellectual push with the Unitarians and the philosophy that undermined the Founding Fathers' more Christian perspective. In Lexington Green, that was the first place they had a teacher training college, and this was really established to bring in this new agenda, this new approach to future. They were futurists, you know, they were ambitious, they were utopians essentially. They believed that America could be fixed or made great if we just get rid of these problems.
Instead, they've turned it into the evil empire.
Yeah, exactly. The biggest problem for them was this bond that existed, and that was between the child and the parent. The parent had all these old ideas, you know, these old notions, and we are progressives. We need
well, that's what they say in their quotes, even in textbooks. They say the archaic family must be eradicated. The disease, every child is mentally ill because of the family.
That's right.
I mean, that's all of our development and humanity passing on common sense. They're saying all of that is bad.
And you know, you get these young children in the schools. It's a natural inclination not to want to be there. They want to play. You know, and as homeschoolers, we give our children a huge amount of liberty in the books they read. They have Kindles and they pick what they want, and they come with Dad when he goes and does things. There's a remarkable amount of liberty in their lives that's enjoyable to them. They have natural lives.
Well, it's more of an apprenticeship is what they used to do. Was the child was with their parents or with who parents trusted to put them with to actually learn adult skills, so they were adults by the time they were 10 or 11. Instead, it's the opposite, and you know that's something that you also get into in this film. It's just incredible. In fact, I want to, before we get to some more of these clips, I want to get into the fact that we continue to see homeschoolers get all the big scholarships. The homeschoolers win the spelling bees, the geography bees, the best quarterbacks, everything. And it's because they just haven't been damaged by the state.
Yeah, we're seeing huge results, and we homeschool not because we want our kids to, it's not about academics for us, although we see that as a fruit. That always is the fruit of being in a loving environment. And you can't pay a teacher to love your kids. You can't put them in a private school and pay them enough to love your kids. What we're seeing is these children who are homeschooled excelling because they're allowed to make, they're in a loving environment, and their parents are giving them the education. And education is more than just facts and figures. That's the myth. If I can just send them to the public schools, they'll learn how to do math and science. But the problem is there's much more to being brought to maturity and to adulthood. And we're seeing men in their 30s and 40s behaving like children. This flight from maturity, that's a huge cultural problem of men not acting like mature men, whereas we look back in culture, we see young men even, running farms and running businesses at the age of 12 and 13 and going off to college and this is what we're getting back.
Well, my dad and then his dad growing up in farming communities, he was like 10 years old driving the tractor, doing the chickens. When he was like 11, they would just let him go for the summer to stay with family in Houston and work in businesses. I mean, he would just believe like it was an adult.
And you think of the happiness that brings a young man, playing around on a farm and doing real things, and that's what we want to encourage people to see. We're not just being blowhards here saying, we're smart because we homeschool or we don't go to public schools. We're saying, we really do have a concern, and this film was made out of a concern for young children in the public schools. We want you to know that there's an agenda there. We want you to know that they're in harm's way.
Well, by the way, Aldous Huxley, Julian Huxley was the first head of UNESCO that globally sets the education standards. It's on record. Our public schools are UNESCO run. DC follows its orders. They openly, in there he talks about in Brave New World, and of course Brave New World Revisited, written in the early 60s, he says, this is what we're really planning as eugenicists. This book is what we want to do. And he said, we're going to arrest the development where the worker class is always childlike. And we'll do it chemically as well. But there they are, and I talk to like 35-year-old men, and they say, well, I'm still young, I want to have fun. Then I talk to retirees, well, I'm retired, I want to have fun now. And they're never even men. And so many men I talk to, it's one thing to joke around sometimes, but they run away from serious issues. And then you read the documents where for over 150 years, it's all been planned. And it's so good to see somebody like you guys getting together, making a professional film, packaging it so well. I just hope that everyone gets indoctrination at Infowars.com and shows it to their friends and family. I want to show a few more clips like Horace Mann and others, but what if people want to have a showing at their church? What if they want to put it on Access TV? Do they need to contact you?
Yeah, just contact me, and we're not charging for screenings. If you want to show it at your church, please show it and show it to your friends. That's the best thing to do. The purpose of making a movie like this is these serve as tracks. These are the things that can be passed along, and it's hard to bring this subject up. There's nothing worse than telling someone what to do with their kids. That's a touchy area, but this film can be something you can use in your church to easily approach that subject.
Exactly, because the old saying, I forget who said it, but a lie travels around the world before the truths walk down the block. Right. And that's the the problem is this establishment folks would copy something and not ask. Our viewers are not going to show this to anybody unless you've told them it's okay. That's just how they are.
That's right. Well, the best thing is to pass it along, you know, get people to see it. There's people that are in need. They're being deceived. They're deceived by the schools. They're deceived by the media that glorifies the public schools. And they're self-deceived. They're trying to convince themselves, even against the obvious knowledge that sending their children to public schools is the right thing to do. And this film argues against that.
And again, if people like being programmed like a robot, and if people like social engineers seeing you as an animal and doing that, if you watch this and go check the documents, and believe me, I've looked at it, folks, it's true. If you want to be a slave, go ahead. But you should at least see it and understand that there's also, for whatever reason, there is a scientific attack on what was classic Christianity. Now they've created kind of a Christianoid system. So they're attacking it by attacking Christianity overall, but also a Christianoid kind of counterfeit too. From so many angles, they're hitting things. And for whatever reason, Christianity, because it believes in the soul, it believes that we have destiny, it believes that we can make decisions on our own, that we have free will. That's why the system hates it. The system doesn't even believe it's real, but they attack it because the true Christian model says that you're special, and they don't like that.
No, the Bible teaches very clearly that man is created in God's image, and there's so many rules that apply, and the result of that is you can't abort a child, you can't go into unjust wars. The foundation of our understanding and our culture largely, the good part of our culture was based on a biblical outlook and valuing human life, and as we see in our culture, the hatred of human life and of good values and immorality.
Every show on TV demonizes families like it's something horrible. And then everybody goes, my gosh, I had kids. It's so wonderful. The sitcom said it was horrible.
That's right. And so the media has propagandized these myths. And what we're looking at now is the blessing of homeschooling, being separate, getting away. You know, you can be as political active as you like, but if you surrender your kids to public schools, it's more likely they will come out not believing the values that you have. It's such an important thing. The worst thing for any family is to lose their child. And you can lose your child physically, like Brian Rohrbaugh, who lost his son at Columbine.
Or spiritually.
Spiritually. So you got these kids coming out, and by the time they're 18, they're gone.
I made it out of public school, but I can't tell you how many buddies I had that I was playing football with in sixth grade that were great families, good people, and who died from violence, died from drugs, became crackheads, or I mean, it is so destructive. Just throwing your children into the worst society you can imagine.
Absolutely. So bring them home, and you'll be blessed. You know, we see so many blessings. Moms having time with their daughters. You know, instead of this feminist model where the mom has to go out and work.
Which we now know was Miss Magazine's CIA.
That's right.
If women want to work, that's fine. But the point is, they don't want you there with the child. The state wants the child. And then now they've set it up with the taxes and everything that most people, everybody has to work.
Can't do it
and then you can. It's just so horrible.
With years of inflation, you can't live on a single income easily, but you have making the sacrifice with the moms being there for the kids and dad being there for the boys and the boys participating in the
Well, that is the goal, but at least knowing what's going on, then you know what to ask, you know what to watch for, you know what to. I mean, at least you because like you said, my parents were just naive.
Yeah, they didn't know. I think generation. I'm not condemning other generations. I think now, because of the information we have, we can look at the history, but as well as what's happening now in our public schools post Columbine, with 400 deaths since Columbine's. Violent deaths happen all the time in public schools, one at a time, and they're not reported. There's a school here in Austin. There was a suicide a few months ago.
Oh, the suicide's off the chart, and the more suicide education they have, the more it happens, because you're introducing the idea to 11-year-old girls of suicide and telling them, don't tie the shoelace around your neck and hang it on the thing. And it's like you're introducing the idea to them.
Yeah, the public schools.
Same thing with the sex education.
That's right.
7-year-olds aren't thinking about sex, much less the types of stuff you're teaching them.
Well, we've got some examples where they talk about the issue of homosexuality to these young children in the schools, and it really is it's heart-rending because these children aren't prepared to talk about these very difficult subjects.
They're totally screwing the kids up.
So the kids
they shouldn't be told about heterosexual sex, and they are totally screwing them up. Young children are not thinking about this, and we let the pedophile public schools do this, and it's disgusting. Just like the TSA is training them to be molested. And this is all part of a wicked plan. I mean, these people are sick deviants. Now, expanding here, Horace Mann, tell us about him. We'll play a clip.
So Horace Mann was a Unitarian, but he was the one that went to Prussia and started to look at that as a model for the public school system. And we have an example in our film where we have an animation of the school bus going along, and everyone starts getting on the bus. The idea is that the yellow school bus is an image, philosophical image of a multiplicity of ideas, not just Unitarianism.
It's joining a cult.
But it's joining absolutely. It's an ideology-led organization.
It's getting on the ship.
That's right. And if you've got a young child,
a ship to hell.
You have to be where you put them on that yellow bus. You are submitting them to.
It's a spiritual decision because the world system has rules. It always has to get you to acquiesce. It wants you to agree.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, we'll go to that clip. Here it is.
Some of the social engineers were saying to the Christian parents, you know, you really don't want to mess up your nice Protestant society that you have here in New England. So simply send all the children to the classrooms and we'll make sure that they're uniformly Protestant. And so the Protestants began to compromise with that idea, and they surrendered their children to a curriculum that was not neutral. And Boston became an experimental city for the powers of the state. And Horace Mann and others were pushing for a government-controlled education curriculum.
Horace Mann, like many of the grandchildren of these wonderful Christian pastors, was a man who rejected the Trinity. He rejected the authority of Scripture. In other words, he rejected the very thing that teaches a sound philosophy of education, the Word of God. For the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge.
Horace Mann wanted to concentrate on education to bring in social reform. He travelled to Prussia and was impressed with a model of education that involved centralised, compulsory, state-funded schools. This is what he imported to America.
We, who are engaged in the sacred cause of education, are entitled to look upon all parents as having given hostages to our cause.
This was the beginning of state-certified teachers and much of what we know in education today.
We've only showed the viewers the tip of the iceberg. I want to give you, just look right into that camera, right over there, my friend. I want to give you the floor here, Colin Gunn, to, talk to parents out there about the film Indoctrination, and then we're going to shut down this edition of Infowars Nightly News. I want to thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Alex. So I'm not just a blowhard here telling you all my opinions about the public schools. In our film Indoctrination, we bring to you eyewitness accounts, people in the public schools, and you're not hearing this information easily in media. This is an important thing. If you're sending your kids to public schools, you have to realize you're submitting them to an ideology, to philosophies that you probably don't agree with, to practices you probably don't agree with. So we're exhorting you as a parent, please, if you've thought about it, thought about education, please consider watching Indoctrination, and please consider taking your children out of the public schools.
Well, that was a quick final summation, but other facets of the film we didn't talk about, because this is really an amazing documentary.
Well, in our film we cover personal stories. So I like documentaries that instead of just having talking heads, we have real people. So we have people that tell you their story. So we have
they've been through it.
They've been there. So we have an elementary school teacher. Now in the Christian circles, there's the argument to be salt and light within the system. That you should be there to be salt and light. So we deal with that argument because that's the argument. That's why a lot of Christians are still using the public schools. They think, well, we need to be there, our children, and the Christian teachers need to be there to perfect the system to make it better. But what we found in the interview that we have with a man called Mike Matarko, who was an elementary school teacher, he testifies to the fact that you can only do very little as a Christian in a public school, even as a principal, because the opposition is so strong. And we have examples of people who are fired, of children who speak out, who give out a Christmas pencil in the classroom and get punished for it. We've got examples of people giving a valedictorian speech and the mic being cut off halfway through because they mention the name of Jesus. So,
which again is taking their individual free speech away, but people can talk about any other religion or idea or environmental propaganda like Avatar. It's just Christianity. Again, why is the system so scared of Christianity?
I believe as a Christian that it's because it's the biggest threat to their form of idolatry, which is statist idolatry. It undermines, it doesn't, the Christianity doesn't allow for human autonomy.
Well, I agree with you, but I'll go one further.
Sure.
I was brought up a Christian, and I've always had a relationship that can feel God and believe in it, but I got a lot stronger as I read and researched the globalist. Right. And they do believe in the devil, and the top New World Order people do worship Lucifer. They think Lucifer is actually God and that Jesus is the devil. And so at the end of the day, that's why we are actually dealing with Luciferians.
I can believe that, and I think that the main thing for me is that we have a victory in sight. There's good news here. The indoctrination ends with some good news. The system can go away, or at least we can now take our children away from this system and educate them like people were educated.
That's right. There's a zinger at the end.
There's something you need to see at the end. And that's important. There's this truth that God is in control of our culture, and that whatever conspiracy it is, He can bring their conspiracies, as intelligent as they are, to nothing, whereas He can give the victory to those that serve Him. I believe we'll see that in our culture. I'm optimistic because God has given us this liberty to homeschool, to protect our children, and we pray every day that will be persevered in our country, and that's one of the greatest things, that children can be like their parents, can grow up in the faith and be instructed, and that's what we hope for. So there's a great news in this film, that it's not all
certainly is. Well, I want to have you on the radio via Skype as soon as you can. I guess you are here in Texas, then.
I'm in Waco, Texas.
Yeah, that's great. So, or you can come back down in a few weeks, be in studio with us. Wow, amazing job. Indoctrination, available at Infowars.com. God bless you. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you. Stay right there. We're about to end the show, and I'll say bye to you guys. All right, great job of the crew getting these guests in here tonight, and with all the breakdown of the news earlier. And God willing, we'll be back tomorrow, 11 a.m. Central, on the radio show, and tomorrow night, 7 o'clock Central for Infowars Nightly News. If you're not a subscriber and you're watching this on YouTube and other platforms, that's wonderful. That's always been our plan, but it is the subscribers that pay 15 cents a day that finance all of this. We got a 15-day free trial to test it out. All my films, books, 9 years of material are at prisonplanet.tv and InfoWarsNews.com, and we're just expanding this, getting more reporters, more crew. I plan to start special shows, special documentaries, special reports. So it's not just myself up here giving you my view on this, but other folks that understand what we're facing inside the New World Order. So please continue to be members. I want to thank the members. You're an integral part of what we do, and because you help the millions of people every week that end up watching the show for free online, and of course you get to see it first as well. So please make copies of this show and hand it out to your friends and family. Send links of these YouTube videos to people as well. All right, that's it for this edition of Infowars Nightly News. We'll see you back tomorrow.